We asked drummer Rick Lee why 10 years after originally broke up. I'm John Bowden from Rock History Music. The brand new 10 Years After album is called A Sting in the Tail. It's going to be released on March 19th. I've had a chance to listen to it. There is not a bad track off it. If you're a fan of the band or a fan of the classic rock sound, there are some groups that don't have it anymore. 10 Years After? Man, I know Alvin Lee is long past, but I highly recommend this album. And in this series, we'll be talking about specific songs, and we'll also have a feature on it on March 19th on our sister site, Rock History Book. I know you've told this story before, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask before I let you go, is why did the band break up in the mid-70s and the early mid-70s?
Oh, blimey, I'm getting asked that all the time.
Well, you know what, again, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because it's the pink elephant question. It's one of those.
Okay. So really from 1970 onwards, after the movie, we already talked about it, that Alvin wasn't overly impressed with playing the enormodromes, as we call them, and was becoming more and more disenchanted with going round and round the rock and roll circus, as he called it, you know. And 1975, we had an American manager, Dee Anthony, who also managed a lot of people, Peter Frampton being one. Yeah. And Dee was trying desperately. I think he'd always wanted to manage Alvin as a solo artist, because that's what Dee knew best. Dee Anthony had come up through Tony Bennett, Bobby Darin, all of those guys. He'd been their manager. He started out as tour manager and then became their manager. I didn't dislike Dee. I thought Dee was fine, but he was, he was after his own ends, as it were. And he saw Alvin as that he could turn into a solo artist. So Alvin said to me, he said, Dee says I'm the star of the show, and you guys should go on wages. So I said, oh, does he? I said, well, I'm not interested. So he said, well, yeah, you're going on wages. Because I'm.
Who owned the name back then? Did you all own the name? Who owned the name of the band?
It wasn't owned in that sense in those days. So he said, so you're going on? I said, no, I'm not going on wages. I'm sorry. I said, if you wanted to do that, you should have done that 8 years ago, or whatever, 9 years ago. I said, because we've taken the rough with the smooth. You know, we've been there. We supported you all through the rough times. I said, and there was no guarantee we were going to make it. You know. Because of the nature of the business, we could all have been scratching around and ended up with nothing, but we hung in there and we kept it going with you, you know. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. You should have done it 8 years ago. I said, so he said, so what are you going to do then? I said, well, I've set up my publishing company. I've got a few artists I'm interested in. I'm going to do management and publishing. And I said, I'll probably play with a couple of other bands. I've got some mates that I play with now and again, you know. I said, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'll do whatever, you know. He said, well, you, Chick, and Leo are going on wages. I said, I am not going on wages. End of story, you know. And we did one more tour after that, which actually was for tax reasons, which I won't bore you with. And then he went on his own. And then they tried to put a band together, I think in 78 without me. Leo rang me and said, we're going to put a band together without you unless you want to be in. I said, no, I don't want to know about it. It's just going to be the same old crap.
Did he have a band called 10 Years Later or something? Or?
Yeah, he did. And the reason he had that was because he knew damn well I'd sue his arse if he used 10 Years After. And he was never one to go to law. He was frightened stiff, you know. So, no, and I would have done too. I would have protected the name because I knew what it was worth.
And but here you are.
The interesting thing is, yeah, well, I tied the name up actually in 1988, would you believe? Took that long before a penny dropped with me, but yeah. Just after 75, maybe 76, maybe a fraction later, there was a letter from Chris Wright who said, this is absolutely incredibly stupid what's going on here. You really should stay together and maybe just do one major tour or two major tours a year like the Who do, and then you can go do whatever you want in between.
Sure.
You know, and you'll have the finance to do what you do, and you'll keep the name alive, la-di-da-di-da. But then I read it again, not recently, but a few years after that, and I thought, I missed the point of this. He actually said, you maybe should consider someone else. So he was hinting that if Alvin wasn't going to do it, Alvin could do his own thing in his solo career, and we could carry on as 10 years after, but with another guitar singer. Right. Which I talked to Leo about that for many years, and he said, "Oh no, we can't do it without Alvin. Never work without Alvin." And I said, "You've got to be raving mad. Of course it will." And finally, I persuaded him to do that. But it took till 2000 or 2002.
Well, and as I said a while ago, here you are, right? I got to tell you that, when I remember going the first time I heard like you were drumming like a lot, and I said, "Hey, is that Gershwin? Is that something?" And I remember going, that's kind of stuff. They're going, a drummer can do that? Is he allowed to do that? I remember you so inspired me with that. I mean, it's almost like that song was like a rite of passage for me.
Well, to be honest, Alvin came up with that bit. What I had was the drummer that was with Alvin and Leo when I first joined a band called the Jaybirds. I took over from Dave Quickmeyer, and he was like my mentor. We did that was the Jaybirds, and I was in a band called the Mansfields. He said, "We got to do a duet. We're doing this gig together." There was what we called a miners' welfare. So we were in the Nottingham coalfields, and so more or less everybody's father was a miner, except my dad, who worked for the gas board. But a lot of people worked for the coal mines, for the coal board, and they had this amazing place up at the top of a hill at the back of our house, where it had offices there, and it had like I think a lot of people were treated there for the lung diseases, that they had from mining. And it had this huge, great sort of park out at the back of it with a lake. And it was a beautiful thing. And they used to have these outdoor sort of festivals in the summertime. And they would march from the center of Mansfield with bands and banners, and all the miners from different mines would do this. And then they'd arrive at this place in at the top of Berry Hill, as it was called, and then they would have a sort of afternoon of frivolity, and there were stalls selling things, and they'd have three-legged races and all sorts of silly things. And then in the evening, they used to hire a couple of local bands to play a sort of an outdoor dance. And they had this bandstand, which was permanent. It was built of concrete, permanent, with a concrete floor in front of it, so people could dance on it. And so Dave said, "Look, we're doing this gig together. You're supporting us at this gig. We should do a duet." So we did a drum duet, which is one of the first I'd ever come across. And the ones earlier, I remember I got on record with Gene Cooper and Buddy Rich doing them. And Dave came up with this thing, which was, in drumming terminology, it was double beat rolls. We did that in unison around the two kits. And then it went into sort of a swing feel. And then we did trades. We did like 4-bar trades. So I would do a 4-bar solo while he kept the rhythm going. And then I would keep the rhythm, and he would do 4-bar. And then we'd stretch to 8 bars. And then we did it to like a solo, and then looked at the other one, and the other one did a solo, and so on. And that was great fun, So, but that's where Summertime came from, because when I started Alvin, we played at the Marquee Club in London. That's where we started out, first of all, and that's where we sort of became popular through that, as did a lot of bands, the Rolling Stones and Fleetwood Mac and John Mayall, you name it. And he said, "You've got to do a drum solo in the set, Rick." I said, "Oh, I don't want to do that." He said, yeah, we're going to have a drum solo. He said, Chick's doing some solos, I'm doing them, Leo's doing them. You've got to do a solo. So he said, "Yeah, go and work on something and come back." So, and I think it was probably put together at the gig. I don't recall us doing a rehearsal for it, because we never did many rehearsals in those days. And so I thought of this thing that Dave, and Arvin said, "Oh yeah, okay, great." He said, how about I'll play this over the top?" And I'm playing the rolling thing underneath it. And then I did a great big snare roll, and and that was the first drum solo I did. So that's where that came from.
A Sting in the Tail is the name of the brand new 10 Years After album. It'll be released on March 19th. And Rick Lee has a brand new book called Headstocks to Woodstock. There'll be links in the description of this video. Make sure you comment on our video, subscribe to our channel, and share our video. We'll have more from Rick Lee in a few days. I'm John Bowden from Rock History Music.